Hi everyone, welcome back to Chess with Mr. A, guys. And today we are talking about the concept who said, how could you guys ever forget about me? I'm one of the most exciting and difficult for anybody, whether you are a beginner, intermediate, advanced, Mr. A, or even Magnus Carlsen. So this is the very important skill that everybody is trying to work on and trying to find a way to improve on it. And this is basically selecting the strongest move in any kind of a position from the three candidate moves. So as you know, the three candidate moves are the moves that you are thinking about, and then the idea is to select the strongest move from those three moves. So let's start with the first example from the London system, where you have a nice center control and both bishops are breathing, and all of a sudden your opponent offers you a trade. So this is the move where, this is the position where it's recommended to do a candidate move, because your opponent is potentially giving you danger, right? So he's attacking your bishop. Now the three candidate moves in a position like this would be to bishop capture bishop, maybe bishop move back, maybe bishop move somewhere else, right? But today we are dedicating our class to selecting the strongest move with the help of the two criteria. So the first two criteria are not very difficult. It says that out of three candidate moves that you have, the strongest move is usually the one that is hardest for your opponent and making him the most uncomfortable. So therefore, if you said bishop capture bishop, that wouldn't be the strongest move out of three moves, because it's very easy for your opponent to just simply capture back. So it's not a bad move that reflects on opponent's last move, but it couldn't be the strongest move in this position. For example, if you move the bishop back, that's better, because if he was to capture you, you then have an open file, which is very, very good, right? So already now, when you move the bishop back, it's harder for your opponent. He has to decide, am I capturing the bishop, am I leaving it as it is, etc. It's a more difficult decision for him compared to if you have captured him. And the third move that we are looking at in this position is to retreat the bishop to another square, making a pin. So I hope that you guys already have figured out that in these three candidate moves that we see, the strongest move would be the most uncomfortable move, and therefore the strongest move for your opponent, the most uncomfortable for your opponent, and the strongest move out of three for us would be the pin, right? So I use this example to say that from the three candidate moves, in any kind of position, you should always try to find the move that makes your opponent the most uncomfortable, and that means Butsufu. And I'm sorry about that. That's just with Mr. A. And that means the hardest for your opponent to play. So once again, don't play the move that is very easy for your opponent. Try to compare your three moves and play the move that is the most, you think, uncomfortable for your opponent by asking yourself, what can he do against your move? We can move on to the next example. So this time we are starting with the king pawn, and let's say black plays something like this. Now we're gonna get a more center control, letting the second bishop breathe. He goes here, focusing on point last move. He's attacking our pawn. We are going to protect our pawn, and now he will activate this knight with more pressure on this pawn. So that is my opponent's last move, and now all of our candidate moves preferably have to reflect on opponent's last move. And this is why understanding your opponent's last move is very important, because if you know that he's attacking this pawn, then unfortunately bishop check is not even part of a candidate move, because it has nothing to do with reflecting on the opponent's last move. So that wouldn't be the candidate move in this position, because preferably your candidate moves should be reflecting on your opponent's last move, right? Which in this position is pressing on the pawn. So if I said the three candidate move in this position would be to capture the pawn, let's say protect the pawn, or bishop pin, which is also indirectly protects the pawn, then something in common with all of these three moves would be that we are protecting, all of our candidate moves are designed to protect the pawn according to our opponent's last move. I can protect it with the bishop, I can protect it by capturing, or I can protect it by activating the bishop and pinning that knight, which automatically protects this pawn because I can capture back, right? So now, once again, the objective is to find the strongest moves, and believe me, when you convince yourself and you find the strongest move out of 3, that feels very, very good. So once again, out of these 3 moves, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about it, but I want you to try your best to find the move that you think will make opponent the most uncomfortable, right? Which is the hardest for him to play. And therefore, capturing a pawn like that does protect white's pawn, but it's very, very easy for black to just capture back. And so this move loses automatically and cannot be nominated to be the strongest move in this position because it does not make black's position in any way uncomfortable. It's very easy to just capture back. You didn't even scare your opponent, right? Now, another move we can talk about in this position is to just simply protect the pawn, which is better than capturing because you're activating a bishop, and protecting the pawn, right? So that could also be a good move, and it's not as easy for your opponent to play in this position. Like, he might think, should I capture, should I not capture? It's a harder decision to make. The bishop is pointing at the future potentially castled king, right? So this move is already a little bit stronger, but I hope that you guys will agree with me and figured it out long ago that the bishop pin was the strongest move in this position compared to the other 2, because against this move, it's not easy for black to play. It also protects the pawn, but it is better than the other 2 moves. Not necessarily more aggressive, but harder to play. We pin the knight, and if he captures, I just capture back with the pressure on the pin. So once again, it's very important to do candidate moves in chess, but if you can tell yourself to try your best to find the strongest move out of 3, then you are basically putting yourself on the next level, and your thinking process is very, very good, and you'll probably most likely win the game, especially against the kid who does not do candidate moves. So you're 2 steps ahead in your thinking process. Not only you're doing the candidate moves compared to the kid who doesn't, but you're also trying your best, which is very important, not just in chess but in real life, trying your best to play the strongest move out of 3, not just a good looking move like this. And once again, what was in common in all of these candidate moves? A reflection of focusing on opponent's last move. So preferably your candidate moves should always be towards your opponent's last move. We can talk about playing for black. Let's say white starts with the king pawn. We're going to start with the center control, like this, like this. Let's say he goes bishop here, which is very, very common. And now we're going to let our bishop breathe, castle, and we are going to open up our other bishop in preparation of a pin, right? And then if, let's say, both bishops breathing, knight center control, white prevents the pin. Now this is the position where it would be nice to do a little bit of candidate moves, right? So you would think about continuing the activation of the pieces since we are in the beginning of the game, and you would say, well, candidate move, usually we need 3 moves, right? So it would be activating the knight to castle, connecting the knights to castle, or maybe offering a trade that gives you, if white falls for that, that gives you an open file for after you castle. And you know that the rook is very happy to be on the open file. Now, we are finishing with the first criteria, which says, please choose the move that make your opponent the most uncomfortable. And just because you're going to activate your knight like this, it's a good activating move that helps you to castle. But first of all, the knights are not connected, and you're only attacking the pawn, so you'll just open up his bishop, ready to pin you, protect the pawn. I'm talking about somebody who is a good, experienced player already, right? You can connect your knights, but white can pretty much do anything he wants against that move, right? Or you can move this bishop over here and offer your opponent a trade that gives you an open file. And I hope you guys will agree that that is where there is the biggest chance of your opponent making a mistake, when the move that you are selected in your candidate moves, making him not easy, right? So this is something that white has to decide what to do against. He can't really ignore it. Capture the bishop. Okay, we have an open file. If you're not capturing the bishop, then what are you doing? Are you going all the way back? What are you doing, right? So in this position, within these three candidate moves, bishop here was the strongest because it's not, because compared to the other two, it's more aggressive, but at the same time, it is more uncomfortable for white. He has to do something right away against it, okay? So once again, to finish off with the first criteria, in your three candidate moves, you want to find the move that is the strongest based on making your opponent the most uncomfortable. So let's say in a position like this, if you pinned your opponent because he didn't prevent the pin, then already you have some candidate moves to do. So you can activate your knight, right? You can do a pressure on the pin. You can even probably just simply move your queen somewhere in preparation of queenside castle, right? But once again, you want to look for the move that is the most, not necessarily the most aggressive, but by asking yourself what opponent can do against the move, you want to play the move that is hardest for your opponent, which in this position, and I hope you guys got it, pressure on the pin, because that could not be dealt with easily. Okay, guys? So again, making your opponent the most uncomfortable. However, there is a second criteria that says that if all of your three candidate moves, and we are gonna go to the back to the London system if you guys don't mind. If all of your three moves are looking good, like let's say like this, right? And then I don't know, maybe black connects his knights, white connects his knights, black push the pawn. We have to anticipate our opponent's last move, go like this, here, connected rooks. And now we are moving the knight into the outpost, unblocking the queen, right? So now let's say black, I don't know, what can black do here? Maybe take, because the knight was intimidating. Capturing with the pawn definitely makes our opponent more uncomfortable. We go into the king, he blocks, we go here, and now let's say something like this. Something like, maybe like this, right? So once again, this is the position where the strongest move comes from doing candidate moves. I just want to make that clear. In order to find strongest move in chess, it doesn't come from looking at the board randomly. You have to do three candidate moves, and only then by comparing them, seeing which one is the most effective, hardest for your opponent, more uncomfortable, that would be the best move. So the second criteria is also very important. Now, no matter what you play in this position, if you're not sure which move makes your opponent the most uncomfortable, the second criteria says, think ahead. So I'm going to give you three candidate moves in this position, and one of them is definitely going to be, let's say, knight towards maximization towards the king. Let's say we can play, I don't know, bishop attacking that potential security guard, or we can retreat the bishop one square back in preparation of charging with the pawn forward. Let's just say these are my three candidate moves. So here, if I'm not sure, if you're not sure which one of your moves make your opponent the most scared and uncomfortable and difficult to play against, then thinking ahead, thinking long term would be very, very good. And that's where this knight move wins the nomination right away to be the strongest move, because this move is based on a long-term thinking by going to the king. So that's the second criteria, which could often help us to see which move is the strongest. It's not what the move is doing right now, but with the further idea, thinking long term. Of course, we want to play the move that is most uncomfortable for our opponent, but if we are not sure, we have to think long term. What are we doing? What's our plan 2-3 move from now? And how does this move is going to affect our position in the future? Here is another example that I would like to talk about. Let's say, so white goes like this. He chases away the bishop. Black doesn't want to give up his bishop to make white bishop stronger. So white captures the pawn, and now all of a sudden black goes like this. So the three candidate moves in this position, let's say towards this opponent's last move, would be something like what? Maybe capture up knight, or protect the knight one way, or protect the knight the other way. Both ways I'm blocking the bishop. So here are my three candidate moves, and I want to find which move makes my opponent the most uncomfortable. At the same time, which move would be the most useful in the future and have the best impact 2 to 3 move from now. So if I capture this knight right now, it's very, once again, it's very easy for black to just capture back, and I don't think we made him uncomfortable, right? So now we are to decide to protect the knight like this, or protect the knight like this, right? So I'm gonna give you guys 30 seconds to try to guess which move is better. You can pause the video. The best, if you guess correctly, you can ask me for a prize, but you have to prove your guess correctly. So in this example, I'm not sure which move makes my opponent more uncomfortable between the two, then I ask myself which move will be more useful and positively impacting within the next 2 to 3 moves. And I hope you guys figured it out, because the correct answer is knight to the right, where when both people castle, so let's say something like this knight is a security guard for white's king, but he's also later on is able to participate in the maximization. So this is why I was saying that thinking ahead, thinking long term, and projecting the impact of the move in future, the positive impact of the move or the negative impact of the move, not right now but later on, is very important. Second criteria, thinking ahead and asking yourself how could that move be useful for later on purposes. This is why this move wins right away. We can see that it's a much better move, which will have a better impact in the future and be more useful in the future, basically. And when we say future, that means 2 to 3 moves from now. Okay, guys? So once again, we are to choose the most uncomfortable move, right? We are to choose the most uncomfortable, the hardest move for our opponent, or we want to play the move with the long-term vision and ask ourselves, what are we doing next, right? So let's just finish off with just one more example right here. And let's say if I move the knight to the center of the board, I'm blocking my queen, right? So he captured, I captured back, and let's say black goes like this. We can capture, point the bishop to the king, and let's say black goes like this, blocking the bishop from looking at the king. So this is the position where 3 candidate moves would be maybe rook into the open file, queen to the king, or even something like, I don't have a knight. It would be nice to have a knight in this position. Okay, let's say even within these 2 candidate moves, you are to find the move with the long-term vision, or the move that is more uncomfortable for our opponent, and that would rather be queen to the king. Okay, guys? That would be more effective than moving the rook into an open file and attacking the queen, which is a good move, but a little bit stronger would be the move that is with the long-term vision, the move that has an idea of what you're doing next, and also it's not quite difficult for your opponent to, when you put the rook in the open file, you're attacking his queen, he just moves away, right? But when you go in like this, it could be more uncomfortable for him because there is no direct threat, but at the same time, you're going slowly to the king. Okay, guys? So once again, the 2 criteria, thinking long term and trying to find the move that is the more uncomfortable for your opponent based on asking yourself what can he do against it. I wish everybody good luck on the quiz, and I hope that with this skill, you can have a better game against computer level 5 or level 6. If you weren't able to beat level 4, try this. Try to stop yourself with the 3 moves, and now in addition to the 3 candidate moves, try to really look for the best move using the 2 concepts that we talked today about.